Hello, everyone. It is lovely to be here at the Singularity U South Africa Summit today. We're doing a session right now with Merritt. My name is Alix Rubsaam. I am the Director of Curated and Research Content at Singularity U, and I'm also a researcher in algorithmic bias and AI. Merritt, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Would you quickly introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm a physicist. I have a background in atomic and laser physics at the University of Oxford, and and I'm a professional ballet dancer. And so currently, during this pandemic, fusing the two by creating these dances with robots.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to dive straight in. I love this. I love how you've brought those two areas of your activity together. What was the initial trigger for that? How did you get to merge the two? Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess the full backstory is that for so long I've separated the art and science, like my paths pursuing the two. So I studied physics at Harvard and then would take time off to dance professionally. And then I'd stop dancing and then go back to physics. And the whole time though, I'd kind of hide from each of the worlds that I was pursuing both. Like I would hide from the physics world that I would dance professionally and kind of tried to hide from the dance world that I pursued physics. Like I would never put it in my resumes. And then at the end, by the time I was finishing up my PhD and I was dancing professionally, I was just like, why not both? Like, why do I have to keep hiding? Why can't I try in a way to fuse the two together? And I think I paused at fusing the two together because I cared so much about excellence. And I was worried that if I brought the two together, that the quality would go down. But this pandemic actually provided this amazing opportunity for me to research bringing the two together in a way without the pressure of having a outcome and output. And so I used the pandemic, like all my dance gigs had gotten canceled. And so I thought, who knew that a robot could be my like future dance partner for a very long time, and
And
just
it and
started
it could.
exploring that.
Yeah, we
Yeah, and
saw
it
that.
has been. It
Yes,
has
yeah.
been, yeah.
And it's beautiful. I really love that. And I really truly personally also connect to that as a researcher. My background is in philosophy and literature, but then the research I do takes place in this sort of very technological sphere. And I really connect to that sort of like, it can be really hard to feel like, yes, I can do the philosophy, but I'll never be a proper technologist, or I can do the technology, but then I have to give up some of the sort of like philosophy rigor. And I think it's such a core part of this singularity mindset of being able to understand that with the way in which our technologies are developing, that the augmented sort of agency that we get because of the democratization of these technologies, it actually enables us and empowers us to find these bridges between fields that have previously been somewhat sort of disconnected. And I really appreciate someone like yourself who's able to find a bridge, to build a bridge really between these two fields. But I really appreciate that sort of hesitation as well, because it can be hard because it feels like you're either or. And so it's beautiful, and it was beautiful to see as well the merge of those two. And to that point, I was wondering if you could lend us your perspective on, we often hear about this enmeshment, the merge between like the human and the non-human, or the machine. Or what can you tell us about, working from your two perspectives, similarities or overlaps that you found, because within these fields that we often experience as so distinct?
Yeah. Well, following up on your point, like, yeah, I think there's things tend to be siloed because people will think that like it's a betrayal if you
Right.
decide to have
Right.
other thing we're also passionate about. Whereas I've really found that actually it enhances, and so going to this question of like the human and technology, human and machine combination, that's where I think the future lies in terms of just inspiring more creativity, like enhancing what we can possibly do and making us really think outside the box. So the beautiful thing I think about pursuing two fields is that you're constantly seeing parallels in a slightly different way, whereas I think in one field you're just trained to ask questions and to pursue research in a certain way. But then if you're in a different field that's gone down a different path, you see the parallels, but also it's slightly different. So you're like, but what if we kind of twist it this way and look at it this way and figure out, and I think that's the future, is being able to, I really believe the future is being able to ask good questions as humans. Like, I think in school we're just taught to like answer questions, like SAT questions, multiple choice questions. And so now working with technology, I think it just constantly is like, it'll work in a different way that we're not used to. And then it's like, it just makes you question and answer and probe. And like, for instance, working with this robot, it's like, it's forced me to move in different ways and create movement in different ways and program things in different ways that I think it enhances my creativity, enhances my way of expressing, enhances like my way of performing and being an artist, and also pursuing the research. Like, then I'm asking and discussing and had collaborating with researchers being like, oh, but can we do this? Like, how do we make it more like this? And like, artistically, I had this vision doing this. And they're like, that was not like, we weren't thinking about that. But, you know, now they're thinking about it and it's like, oh yeah, let's really push the limits and let's, you know, let's kind of have that imagination of where it can go.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly that interdisciplinary approach that allows you to ask new questions and open up new possibilities, right? Where a field on its own can be in very deep and in depth, but still adding in an extra layer or depth to it can provoke all these new sorts of ideas. And I think we saw that, of course, in the opening performance, which was amazing. And I'd love to ask you a bit more about the process, how that came to be, what we saw, and what you think about these kinds of performances for the future.
I have to say, this collaboration has by far been like a highlight collaboration of my entire life. Really, truly. So it's right now, like for the past year, all my dance gigs got canceled. So I was working alone with the robot, and I was so appreciative, like, that I had this robot to dance with me throughout the day. But I think now it's just pushed to another level. Like with this performance, the team that I was collaborating with, like Lebo, like her poetry, her words, her artistry, the what she says is so moving and so incredible. And the team behind it, that's like, and David, who's working also like bringing it all together, and the visuals that are coming in and the music and it's coming from different perspectives, like also the conversations we had behind the poem and the meaning of it. And they both in South Africa. And, you know, I think this summer was, you know, there was a lot happening. And it just resonated, you know, and it was a truly like, I felt it from the gut, like, working on it was something that I was like, oh, like this really brings meaning to it, right? When you're talking with other people also about what it is you want to say. And technology is such a tricky conversation, right? Like, and this human machine interaction. And so we've had like really phenomenal conversations about like the goods and the bads and the questions and our role in what we want to, you know, have people question and talk about. So it's been a really phenomenal experience.
Yeah, I really like what you just said. I think often when we talk about human machine interaction, we come at it from a rather sort of depersonalized way. It's a singular human machine interaction, whereas in reality we aren't singular humans, right? We're all of our, and so often in the field of HCI and human computer interaction, this is of course a problem that we run into, that we think about, well, not we, but one tends to think about the human in that human computer interaction as always the same, when in reality every human interacting with a machine or with each other is a different human altogether. And I find that particularly sort of striking about what you just said and about the performance, is that it gives space to all of those different humans interacting with a machine and with each other, which really shows us the depth of something that's often forgotten in our interactions with technology, is the diversity of its users. And yeah, I find that particularly striking about your answer. But it is a challenge, of course, as well, as we create in interdisciplinary spaces. And as you highlighted, these are even more disciplinaries brought into the fold for just this performance, which kind of latches onto what we spoke about earlier.
Mm. And what I love about Labor, like the poem as well, is that if people rewatch it, it's like, who's the voice behind it, right?
Exactly.
So like, there are complaints that automatically will assume we'll be like, okay, maybe this is the voice of the robot or the technology, or this is the voice of the human. And actually you're like, oh, actually,
Is it?
you just, right. And you see, oh, but also you can see how nature has the same complaint about human, like there's like so many players, and you just hear that actually all the players involved in the future can have that same narrative and that fear and that questioning and those doubts, and that it's just going to entail a lot of conversations amongst humans and understanding and figuring out the best path and how we can make it the most promising future.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, no, and I totally agree. And obviously, because of my work in sort of algorithmic bias, right, this is exactly the kinds of questions, like as you mentioned, that we want people to ask. Like, does it represent us? Is it, whose voice is it? Rather than just saying this is the representative. I think that's perfect. So I also want to ask you, of course, I've heard that you have some plans for the future, and that they involve dancing in space.
Hopefully, my fingers, everything's crossed on me right now.
Tell us more about that. What's the plan?
Yeah, we will see. There's a very exciting adventure out to space, and the Dear Moon Project, and they're taking 8 artists with them, and we shall see what happens. Yeah, I think they'll make their announcements sometime soon. But also there are just a lot of ventures out into space that are bringing civilians out. And so I'm yeah, but I'm also applying through NASA because of my physics and dance background.
Sure,
and so I've kind of got all my
so that's the plan.
I want to go up.
You want to dance in space. However you get there, you want to dance in space.
Yes.
Because why make it easy for yourself, right? Why make it just
I mean, it's one of those things, I just cling on to things and I'm like, I want to do it. I will do everything every day in my power to get there. So.
Well, that's great. That's very inspirational. And should anyone be listening that has a ticket to space, you'll know where to find Merritt.
And if you or an extra ticket to space and you want to
extra ticket to space, yeah, I'll come. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to get a chance to have a quick chat with you. I really appreciate you taking the time to being here with us.
Well, thank you so much. This is an incredible conference, and I'm so thrilled to be part of it.
Good. Thank you. And thank you, everyone.